Good evening, families and friends and students of Board District 5. I want to welcome you to our Redistricting 101 informational session. My name is Jackie Goldberg. I am proud to represent Board District 5 on the LAUSD Board of Education. Before we begin, though, I'd like to take care of a few items that will help everybody participate in the meeting.
Buenas tardes a todas y todos y bienvenidos al foro virtual del Distrito 5 de la Junta Directiva, sesión informativa titulada Conceptos Básicos sobre la Redistribución del Distrito. Les habla Jackie Goldberg, orgullosamente integrante del Distrito 5 de la Junta de Educación. Antes de comenzar, quisiéramos repasar unos puntos generales.
First of all, you can listen to this webinar in English or in Spanish. For Spanish, click the interpretation button at the bottom of your Zoom window and then select Spanish. It looks like a globe. We have wonderful interpreters from the LAUSD translation unit translating everything that's being said. So again, if you're at a computer and you want to listen in Spanish, click the interpretation button at the bottom of your Zoom window, that's that globe, and select Spanish.
Primeramente, pueden escuchar este webinario en inglés o en español. Para escuchar en español, den clic en el botón Interpretación al pie del cuadro de Zoom y seleccionen Español. Nuestras maravillosas intérpretes de la unidad de traducción de LAUSD están traduciendo todo lo que estamos diciendo. Así que, nuevamente, si están en sus computadoras y desean escuchar en español, den clic en el botón Interpretación al pie de la ventana de Zoom y seleccionen Español.
If you have any trouble switching the language to Spanish using the interpretation button, you can also use your phone. to call into our Spanish audio line, which is already up and running, the number and access code for that are on the invitation to this event.
En caso de dificultades para cambiar al español con el botón de interpretación, pueden escuchar por teléfono llamando a nuestra línea de audio en español que ya está activada en estos momentos. El número y el código de acceso están en la invitación de este evento.
Second, we have American Sign Language interpreters as well. To continue to see them throughout the town hall, please just make sure to keep your Zoom is set to gallery view so that you can see all of us at once. If you are viewing on a mobile device, just swipe left until you can see multiple panelists in your screen. Finally, you might notice that only our panelists are visible and audible. As we go through the discussion, we invite you to ask questions by clicking the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Then we'll then get to as many questions as we can when we get to the Q&A session. Please, though, try to make your questions brief. You can write your questions in Spanish if you'd like, that's no problem. And don't worry about spelling or grammar. We'll get the point of the question. If you're joining us by phone, we won't be able to take your questions, but you can email any questions you have that aren't asked by others to bd5info@lausd.net, and we will get back to you in the next few days. My staff will be getting your questions to me on a separate spreadsheet, so don't panic if you see your question disappear from the chat box. Redistricting is a process that takes place every 10 years following a census. That means the counting of the people of America. The district boundaries of elected officials are redrawn, and they reflect changes in population, and they reflect the needs of communities. A redistricting commission gathers data and input and then makes recommendations to the Los Angeles City Council, who will make a final decision before December 31st of this year. Tonight is an information session to prepare you for the public comment opportunities on the maps that are in draft form right now. The public hearings on the draft maps are tomorrow, October 6th, and Saturday, October 9th. Tonight, we will be answering questions on the redistricting process, but there will be no public comment taken on the maps themselves. That's something that you will do either October 6th or October 9th to the commission, where it makes a difference. And now I want to give a very warm welcome to our guest, Genesis Coronado, who is the Redistricting Commission Outreach Staff Lead. And she's going to guide us on the redistricting process and will answer questions at the end of the presentation. Thank you so much for joining us, and take us away, Ms. Coronado.
Thank you, Board Member Goldberg, for having me join this evening. As you mentioned, this is a very important conversation to have. It only happens every 10 years. And so I'm thankful and grateful that we were able to partner to make this happen so we can educate more community members, more families, more parents about why it's important to engage in this process now. So without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and share my presentation and we can start.
Para que comencemos.
Okay, let's see. Great. So just, can I get a thumbs up if it looks good? Okay. All right. Here we go. So once again, this is a conversation, a presentation, an introductory presentation around the redistricting of the LUSD Board of Education districts. So some quick overview of the commission. The commission is composed, it's a 15-member body. 7 of those commissioners are directly appointed by LUSD Board of Education board members.
Ms. Coronado, if I could interrupt you for a second, we can't see your screen, just so you know.
Okay. That is good to know. Let's try this again. Okay.
There it is. Now if we just go full screen, beautiful. It's perfect.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So let's go back to the Redistricting Commission and the members of that body. So 15-member body, 7 appointed by the LUSD Board of Education board members, 4 appointed by the LA City Council president, and the last remaining 4 are appointed by the mayor of the city of Los Angeles. The commission has at the moment 2 standing committees that are active, the Data and Mapping Committee and the Outreach Committee. So this is a quick overview of the timeline for the redistricting process. It's a very tight timeline this year, more so than ever, because the census data arrived really late. And so that kind of put us in a time crunch there. So early in mid to late August, the commission went out to the public and took input from the community with regards to communities of interest and sharing of specific neighborhoods that the communities wanted to be paired up with. After those 7 public hearings and when considering the census data as well and a number of other community data sets, the commission officially adopted 3 draft maps on September 29th, which are now for public review and are now for public distribution. So currently we are in the phase of taking public input from stakeholders, all the different stakeholders, all the different LUSD stakeholders with regards to these draft maps. The commission will be holding these 3 public hearings. They held one last night. The next one is tomorrow night, and the final one is Saturday morning. They have 3 scheduled regular commission meetings on October 13th, October 20th, and October 27th, where they will begin to have those deliberation discussions around how the final map should look like. They have until October 29th to finalize that map and send that over to the city council for their consideration. I think it's important to know and make this mention to the community that the LUSD Redistricting Commission serves as an advisory body to the LA City Council, and the LA City Council has that final say and final vote on what those boundaries would look like for the map that will be in place starting January 1st, 2022. So the LA City Council will also hold public meetings once the LUSD Redistricting Commission turns over their final recommendation. They'll most likely hold some in either November or December. Those dates are still up in the air, but we'll make sure to also send those dates out to our community members and the different stakeholders so they're aware of that opportunity for engagement. So why is redistricting important? We've talked about why, how it only happens every 10 years, how, after the census data comes in, those districts have to now be redrawn to consider for those changes in population, right? And so how those districts and where those boundaries lay, right, actually gives communities that possibility to elect, right, a candidate of their choosing. So it directly impacts political representation. So that is why it's crucially important for as many people to be involved in this conversation, because it could directly impact who the next elected representative will be to represent them on, on the school board of education or on, in a congressional seat or a Senate seat, et cetera. So as the commission draws these maps, they have to consider a number of legal criteria that they have to abide by. The first one being the equal population principle. Once again, ensuring that these new districts that are drawn are now making sure that the population within those districts is equitable. the 2020 census data is used in that sense to make sure that those districts are now equal in population, because the communities potentially in the past 10 years have now shifted, maybe moved to a different district or move outside of LA County or outside of the region, right? So currently at the moment, those districts are not equal in population. And so they have to now account for that and make those changes. The second one, the US Constitution Equal Protection Clause. It actually ensures that race isn't the predominant factor that is used by the commission when redrawing these maps. The third, the Voting Rights Act of 1965 ensures that minority voters as well also have an equal opportunity to elect a candidate of their choosing. Lastly, the traditional redistricting criteria, which we'll get into in a few. So some of the redistricting criteria, the traditional redistricting criteria in particular, the first being contiguity, right? All parts of a district have to connect. You can't have a piece of a district be sort of up here and another one down here and call that a district. There has to be a way that they're connected. The districts should actually be geographically compact in the best way possible. They should also consider using boundaries that are natural boundaries in those districts, as well as perhaps freeways, highways, current political boundaries. And very particularly to this commission, they have to consider school attendance zones that are already in place by LAUSD. And the fourth one, and very important one, is they have to also preserve neighborhoods and communities of people that share common interests, which we call communities of interest. And so we kind of mentioned this earlier in the presentation when we went out to the public in middle August, middle to end of August. We went out to hear from the community, what they thought, who they considered, or how they defined their community of interest. And these community of interest are defined, by shared interests, right? Such shared interests can include language, common cultural, right? Particular points of interest. And it's crucially important to try to protect these communities of interest for the purpose of their effective and fair representation, right? And so this information, this data isn't something that the commission can find, right, in the census or any other data set that is out there. This is something where the community shares that piece of information with the commissioners so that they can take that into consideration as they finalize these maps.
This is the sign language interpreter just letting Michelle know that I'm trying to record. Sure, I don't think she can see my screen. So yeah, thank you, sorry.
No worries. So for those of you that might not be aware, this is the way that the current LAUSD Board of Education district map looks like. And once again, I want to reiterate, this is the Board of Education, right? So the board members represent these districts. We're not talking about the local districts, and we're not talking about the communities of schools. These are the seats in which the board members are actually elected to represent, right? So this is the current makeup of that district and how that looks like. For most folks that are joining us tonight, I assume are currently in District 5. And so under this map, that is the green section. And so you see sort of how that looks like. And once again, this map cannot stay the way it is because the population in our communities have changed. So there has to be changes made to these districts overall. So what are those proposed draft maps that the commission is putting forth? So these are the 3 draft maps. There's draft map 1A, draft map 1B, and draft map 2. Between draft map 1A and 1B, the only key differences between those maps are between districts 2 and 5. So this is crucial for the folks that are joining us tonight and are currently represented under District 5. These are maps that you want to consider and look at to see if how these communities are connected and what communities are now under District 5 would actually be, of liking to you, or you think those should be changes that should be made. Now in District 2, District 5 stays closely similar to the way that it currently is, but there are some changes to that. So those black lines that you see there on the maps are what the current map looks like, and sort of the overlay of the colors is what those changes would look like. So for District 5, you're looking at the light blue. And I'm just going to give folks a couple of seconds here so they can look at those differences and kind of see, you know, where the potential impacts could be. So once again, District 5 is in the light blue. Okay, so now what is that input that we're looking for to gather from the community at this point? We're really looking for comments around the draft maps, right? Is the community in support of these draft maps? Are you in support of on any particular district configuration? You know, do you approve such configuration for District 5 in this draft map? Do you disapprove of it for this particular one? We want to know that. And if there are any changes that need to be made, what changes do you recommend that the commission make? That's the type of input that we're looking for at this point of the redistricting process. So how can you share that input with the commission, right? The first one is the most important one: attend a public hearing. As previously mentioned, you know, there's a public hearing happening tomorrow night at 6:30 and another one happening on Saturday at 11 a.m. So that link there will take you directly to the Zoom virtual meeting where you will join us and share that public directly with the commission members. You can also join via phone, and that is a meeting ID for that. There is Spanish interpretation provided at all of the hearings. And if you need any other language accommodations, you can make those by request and we can accommodate you as well. Now, if for whatever reason you're unable to make a public hearing, you can also share your input with the commission through our online Google form. And that is a link that will directly take you to that. And if you go to our website, you can also find our Google form as well. Now, options 3 and 4 are a little more on the creative side, right? There are a couple of groups and perhaps individuals that would like to actually draw their own maps and submit those to the commission for consideration. And that is also another way that you can provide input to the commission. There's a mapping tool that the commission is providing to the public, which you can access on our website. There's a mapping tool tutorial on our YouTube channel as well that you can listen in on, and it'll teach you how to use a mapping tool so you can draw your own maps. You can draw a map of the entire LAUSD Board of Education, right? Districts 1 through 7, or you can draw one simply for District 5 and submit that to the commission directly, whatever is your choosing. So yeah, these are the key dates coming up, right? The public hearings that we really hope as many community members and stakeholders show up to make their voice heard at these public hearings. The October 4th was last night, October 6th is tomorrow night, and October 9th at 11 a.m. Now, the commission is also hosting those regular meetings, as previously mentioned, October 13th, October 20th, and 27th, which you can also attend and provide comments, you know, as a general public comment. However, these public hearings are specific to hear public input with regards to the draft map. And the remaining regular commission meetings, the commissioners will have other agenda items that they will need to discuss. So there won't be as much time really allotted to public comment in those meetings. So how can you contact the commission? You can send us an email, redistricting.lausd@lacity.org. You can also send us your comments as well directly to our email. You can call in if you need to request translation or if you have any questions. That is a direct line to connect with the commission, 213-221-2245. And then you have access to our website, redistricting2021.lausd.org/LAUSDRC. And our website has all of our information regarding our upcoming public hearings, how you can connect, the Zoom information, our mapping tool, the different, the commission's morals and values as well. All the commission members are listed there, so you're aware of who they are. Now, lastly, if you want to just keep up with the commission and what they're doing, you can follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And on our YouTube channel, we actually post all of the past public hearings, all of the past commission meetings, which if you'd like to view them and hear the conversations that the commissioners have had regarding a certain topic or subject, you can check out our YouTube channel, and those are all accessible to you. So that's what I have so far. I'm sure there are a lot of questions, so I wanted to make sure that we gave time to the public to ask questions. So I don't know, Fidencio, or how we're going to.
Okay, I'm gonna help.
Great.
First of all, I want to say thank you so very much to Ms. Coronado for this wonderful presentation. But before we jump to the Q&A session, I want to remind you that we are not answering questions about the maps, only about the process. The reason that's the case is because it is not appropriate for us to discuss the maps in a political process, which this is. So we need to do it through the commission and through the commission only. And that's really why we can have to limit what kinds of questions you can ask. The redistricting, okay, that's about the process. Okay, so now let's take a look at the questions we have. And the first one says, how can redistricting reflect the diversity of the student body and not give outsized control to a particular group? I assume that in part reflects the fact that while the students of the district are heavily Latino and Latina, the board members are not entirely proportionate to those numbers. So I think the question is asking, how do we make sure that that the student body is reflected, not necessarily the population is reflected?
Yeah, that's a really good question. For these particular districts, the census data takes into consideration all the people living, right? So students, parents, families, as well as, even folks that are not citizens in this country, right? As long as their population in those districts, that's what the data takes into consideration. Now, some of the information that the commissioners are using to really consider sort of students and who would attend these districts, et cetera, are the high school attendance zones. And that is sort of how the student population is being considered as these maps are drawn. Looking at sort of what those patterns look like, right? How are students moving from which middle school to which high school? How can we ensure that they are able to be represented by the same elected official and by the same board district, and not have to change once they transfer over to high school, right? Or once they move from elementary to middle school. So that's something that the commission is considering as they draw these maps.
I think it's also important for you to remember that the voting population is not the same as the student population. And so no matter how you draw the districts, there Anglos like myself will be, well, I'm not an Anglo, I'm an Eastern European, but white people like myself will be overrepresented in the number of people who vote because many people of color are not yet citizens. And so it looks like, how is it it's so surprising, many people will say, that 70% of the kids are Latino and Latina. Why aren't 70% of the board members? And that has a lot to do with the fact that the voting population does not necessarily reflect the student population. And I think the goal of the district redistricting commission is to try and get as close to those two being alike as they possibly can, but understanding that you got a difficult problem in that the adult population that's eligible to vote is not the same proportionate Latino and Latina as is the school population. And it makes it very frustrating for a lot of people.
Yeah, if I can add really quickly to that, I think something else that's important to note here is that, there is, consideration for an undercount, right? There was a lot of community members, a lot of minority groups that, we feel that were undercounted in this year's census. And so, the commission can use a 10% deviation between district population. However, they have to actually be guided by data. And so they're kind of limited to using that information as they draw those maps.
Next question is, thank you. Next question is, some of the maps divide the current Marshall High School boundaries. Is that allowed? Will any school boundaries be redrawn based on the redistricting maps?
That's a good point. Some of the draft maps, if they do divide those, Marshall High School boundaries, I think those are important comments that the commission needs to hear. And that's a type of, input that they're looking for. So that is definitely a legitimate concern. And I would, urge you to make sure that you share that with the commissioners at the public hearings, or submit a comment and make sure that that information gets to the commissioners, because they do want to take those public comments into consideration, specifically with regards to school attendance zones.
I think there's some concern that there's confusion, because we're not using terms like local
Porque no estamos usando términos como distrito local.
East, because those are within LA Unified, those are local districts of schools. But we use numbers because the board election districts are numbered 1 through 7. And so don't get confused. We're not talking about local district East and local district Central and local district West, which are the 3 that serve board district 5. We're talking about the schools in board district 5. But that gets me to a question that one other person asked, which is, can there be a list of schools that are in each draft, so that for board district 5, so that everybody can see where their school is? Because sometimes in those maps, those lines are pretty hard to figure out whether the school name is in the district or the dot is in the district. I've been looking at them myself and I can't even tell. So is there a possibility that you could list for each of the drafts maps all the schools that would be included?
Yeah, I think that is a great ask, and I'll take that back to the commission so we can try to put something together. If you want to get more on the nitty-gritty of each district, if you go to our website and you check, the proposed map section, you can do a really good deep dive into the school attendance zones, and some of those schools are listed as well. So, but I'll take that back with me and see if we can put together a document that actually lists the schools that are covered under each district.
I think that would be very important to do. I'm going to put my 2 cents in here, because I've tried even by making the districts very big, but it was still very difficult on the edges to tell who was in and who was out. So, and I know that's a lot of the concern of a lot of people is where is my school going to be? Okay.
Yeah, no, of course. Thank you. I'll make sure to get a response to that.
All right. So one of them said that there's only a tiny connection for board district 5 from Eagle Rock, downtown LA. This looks like gerrymandering. Is this gerrymandering?
Is this gerrymandering? So the legal criteria that the commission uses, right, they have to stick to legal criteria to ensure that they aren't doing anything that is illegal. If you would want to comment and make sure that certain communities are put together under District 5 that currently are not, or that certain section be under a different district. I think, that once again is a comment that the commission would love to hear. And you can definitely, share that with the commissioners at the upcoming public hearings. We have heard, once again, I just want to reiterate, the commissioners serve as an advisory body, and they're going, to do their best to consider all the public input, all of the data as they finalize the map that they're going to recommend to the LA City Council. And at the end, the LA City Council will make that final decision, with regards to how those districts will be in place for the next 10 years.
Can you better explain what communities of interest means?
Yeah, of course. I know that's a difficult, very technical term. Communities of interest are, any community that you feel you share some common interest with. So, for example, it could be defined by certain streets that you consider your community of interest defined by these streets. This is how I define my neighborhood, right? Or it could be defined by culture. It could be defined by a language that community shares. And so you get to define what that looks like. You get to tell us what your community of interest is. Some communities are very closely aligned with the, the current neighborhood council boundaries, right? There are other communities that don't. They feel that their community is something maybe that is broader, or some that maybe are closer and more of it's a neighborhood, even closer, smaller than the neighborhood council boundaries. Or even beyond that, there's communities that are unincorporated, right? And they don't define with the particular city, but they define with particular boundaries that are by streets, and they have a certain points of interest within those communities that connects those neighbors. And so, it's a very broad opportunity for the community to share what they consider to be their community of interest. Ultimately, keeping those together is what the commission is going to try to do, to ensure that those interests are protected as they draw these maps.
I'm confused, the next person says, and you got a lot of company there. Will this redistricting possibly change families' home schools? No. What it changes is what it could change is what board member represents your homeschool. But your homeschool is still your homeschool. Wherever your kids go to school now after redistricting, they'll still go to school there. The change would be some of you may have a different board member in 2022, because you may no longer be in board district 5, or you may be out of board district 5 and in 2022 you're now in board district 5, but your homeschool doesn't change. It says that, can we see the maps again? Are the Northeast LA borders changing for board district 5?
Yeah, those are some of the changes that are proposed in some of the draft maps. So I'll go ahead and share that again. So there you go. Those are the 3 draft maps. In District 5, some of the Northeast communities are under District 2 now, right?
And we can't see the maps.
Oh, great. Here we go again. Let's try it one more time. Okay, can you see them now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, yeah, so, right, in District 5, once again, is the light blue. District 2 is the yellow. So there are some communities that are flipped over into District 2, depending on the draft map that you are looking at. So the majority, if you look at draft 1B, you see that a lot of the Northeast communities are now under District 2. Draft 1A, there's still, some of the Silver Lake and communities around that region are still under District 5, but District 5 also covers the downtown Pico Union area. In District 1B, you have Koreatown now in District 5, and then also the downtown as well. And District 2 is what most closely represents what the current District 5 looks like.
Okay, so the next question, how are we to ensure these districts reflect the actual student body, and especially in places where gentrification has increased the household income levels, but those households aren't attending LAUSD schools, but they still get to vote?
Right, yeah. For the Board of Education, right, everyone that lives in those boundaries gets to vote, whether they have students at LAU.
Sorry, this is the interpreter. Could you say the question again, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I should be more.
No, you're fine, you're fine.
It says that how do we ensure that these districts reflect the actual student body, especially in places where gentrification has increased the household income levels, but many of those households are not sending their children to LAUSD schools?
Yeah, I think those are other points that the commission is considering, right? Which districts, which communities are actually more dependent on public schools and public education, and which ones are not, right? Regardless, the population is more based off of, the overall population and not just the student body, but they are taking those things into consideration as they draw these maps. They're trying to as closely ensure that students that do depend on the public school system are going to be well represented on the Board of Education.
The next question is, does the district have input on the redistricting commission? And I'll answer that one. Yes, indirectly. Each board member appointed a person. I appointed a person from Southgate because I felt the Southeast cities had a lot to say in this matter, and I wanted to make sure they had someone who was going to represent the Southeast cities. But yes, that's our input. Otherwise, we have public comment like everybody else. No, we don't tell them what to do. We don't call the redistricting commission and say, here's what I want my district to look like. No, we don't do that. However, once the maps are up, I am certainly welcome, like any other person, to call in and say, or write in and say, which of these maps I think best serves the communities that I'm currently serving. I'm welcome to do that. But no, we don't actually have direct input on the commission, other than each of us appoints one member to do to vote, part of the 15 committee. The next question is if the criteria says that districts should be geographically compact, then why would District 5 map be considered when it divides two distinct communities with a slice to connect them?
Yeah, that's a good point. If you feel that District 5 is not geographically compact, and that is definitely a comment that should be made at a public hearing and shared with the commission. This is the last map that was implemented looks very closely to that. So legally it stands and follows the legal criteria, but the community and the public also has a say in this. And so I would urge you to once again make that consideration to attend a public hearing and share that comment with the commission as well.
Now, I mentioned that only citizens can vote. So the question is, are there citizenship classes available to change that? Yes, our adult school has citizenship classes day and night, and many of them are at your local high schools and middle schools near your home. So absolutely, I actually support the idea that anybody who has a child in the school should be eligible to vote. However, when we brought that up, we got into some difficulty because a lot of immigrant communities were afraid that by identifying them as immigrants, we would help ICE find them to kick them out. So we dropped the idea of doing it. But personally, I believe that everyone who has a child in the school, regardless of immigration status, should have a right to vote for the board members. I just can't seem to find a way to make that happen.
And if I can add really quickly, board member, everyone is allowed to participate in this process, right? If you are not a voting member, or if you're not eligible to vote, you can still participate. The commissioners are inviting everyone that is a stakeholder in LUSD to participate. So I hope that there's folks that are out there considering that they don't feel intimidated. The commissioners are really welcoming the input from everyone, and we won't discriminate based on your citizenship status.
The question next is, are we adding districts or simply changing the boundaries of the existing ones? We're changing the boundaries because the law right now only permits 7 board members on the school board, and so you need 7 districts. When will the new maps take effect?
January 1st, 2022.
So they will be in effect for the next election cycle.
Correct, yes.
Okay. Will Hilda Solis have an opportunity to vote on the final map?
She will not vote. However, she chooses to submit a comment. She can very well do that.
Let's see. Are they adding districts? No, we already answered that one. Oh, the question is, a map will be adopted by the city council at the end of this year regardless. Knowing that, and knowing that this is a council that gives recommendations and not make decisions, how will families be made aware of the process when it goes to the city council?
Yeah, I think as the outreach director for the LUSD Redistricting Commission, we will continue to outreach to the stakeholders and the communities to let them know of the upcoming opportunities within the LA City Council, at which point the communities could also attend those public hearings. So as the outreach director for the commission, I'll make it my duty to continue to share that information with the public, because I do feel that the community, still has a right to advocate for their communities also at the city council level.
And let me say, as a former city council member, it will be hotly debated. These maps do come over with a recommendation from the commission, but that doesn't mean that the city council is going to decide that that's what they're going to do. Although they have mostly accepted the recommendation, they have sometimes chosen to change the recommendation. So I would say to you, if you are strongly in favor of one of these maps, don't stop your input with the commission. When it gets to the city council, you make sure you sign up online or in person to tell them, I voted for board draft map blah, and here's why, and it didn't come to you, and I expect you not to pay attention to what they said, or I love what the district commission said, please vote for, because it can still change when it goes to the city council. That correct?
Absolutely correct.
Well, I think it's important to know that, because you don't want to stop. If you have a strong feeling about this, you do not want to stop at step one.
Right, for sure.
Why does the LA City Council get to choose which map gets selected when there are cities that are not LA City that are included in LA Unified?
That's a really good question. Currently, the LA City Charter, given that it is the largest city within LAUSD, has that responsibility to oversee the redistricting process of the LAUSD school district. Legally, that is the only way.
Can you repeat the dates of the public hearings?
Of course, October 6th, which is tomorrow, 6:30 p.m. and Saturday, October 9th at 11 a.m.
Do you have any sample algorithms or rubrics that are currently being used to determine these demarcations? I think they're really trying to ask, how did the maps get made?
Yeah, well, the legal criteria that I went over, if you go to our website, it actually breaks down as well, the population. That is one of the key things that guides the commissioners, right? Making sure that these districts are equal in population. So those numbers and the population of each district, within each of the maps is also listed on each of those maps on our website. And it actually breaks down as well the demographics and even the voting age population as well.
Why do some of the district maps reach into the ocean?
Yeah, that's interesting. There's a couple of islands that also have to be considered because they're within LAUSD boundaries. That is why
Catalina is one of them.
Right, exactly.
Right. Okay. So I guess that's where they goes into the ocean. We're not really actually having people vote in the ocean.
Right.
Let's see. Is it possible for the Southeast LA cities to have their own board district?
It is not, because the Southeast cities alone do not meet the population criteria that is required, because we have the 7 districts, right? That now have that the total population of LAUSD has to be divided into 7. They are short of population, and part of that could be due to the huge undercount in this year's census, last year's census.
Well, at this moment, that's all the questions.
Oh, great! I'm glad we got to all of them.
So let me just add a few things, if I might. Leave the maps up, if you will.
Okay, sounds good. Are they visible?
Right.
Great.
Okay, and then I'm going to want you to go back to the place where you had all the addresses that where people could. There you go. Take a picture of this if you have your camera, if you have your phone in it with a camera in it or something, because this is really what I hope you will do. I hope you will go to attend a public hearing via Zoom, click on that, or copy it down and put it in, or make the phone call and find out how you can get your views known. You know, these situations only happen every 10 years. It won't happen again until 2030. And so we're stuck with whatever this is. So it is really important for you to make your voices heard, because otherwise, it's just a few people on something that affects a whole lot of us. I think it's really important for you to look at the maps, which would be to, where does it show you how to get to just look at the maps? Not to submit a map, but how to just look at the maps more.
Yeah,
closely.
if you
Okay,
go
there you
to our
go.
website. Mhm.
There you go. So that redistricting 2021.lacity.org/LAUSDRC, that is really important because you can make those maps very big. And when you make those maps very big, you can see what the differences are between the three choices much easier than you can even with nice colors in the other maps. So I mean it seriously. And I do hope that you will get to us as soon as you can, the schools in District 5 in each of the three categories, because I did work on this today. And I would say what I could tell about 95% of them, but those around the edges, I wasn't really sure. And so it would be very good for people to know, is my school leaving the district or is my school coming into the district in which of these maps? So that's my big request to you. So I'm just going to conclude by saying it's really important to make public comment. And it's important because you won't have another chance to change any of this for 10 more years. And that means that if you're going to have any dissatisfaction with the way it's done now, the best thing you can do is to be able to say, here's what I hope you'll do instead, or here's what I like. If you love one of them, please tell them that too, because it helps them to know when things are loved. The commission public hearing dates tomorrow, 6:30. Saturday, 11 a.m. And I want you to stay up to date on the redistricting process even after that, because the meetings on the 13th, the 20th, and the 27th will also give you another chance to comment, but also to hear the discussion and the debate by the 15 commission members. Remember, 4 from the mayor of Los Angeles, 4 from the president of the city council of Los Angeles, and 1 each from the school board members. So that's who's going to vote on what they send to city council. And this is really important for you to be able to be heard, because after they send this to the city council and then the city council votes on it, it's done for 10 years. It's done. So I think I just want to conclude there. I don't see it. Let me check one more time, see if there's anything been added. Yeah, redistricting 2021.lacity.org. Knowing that people are afraid to fill out census forms and knowing that there are many more students, why are these changes going to affect us all is the last question. And the truth of the matter is that Trump and his company, by saying we're going to ask about your immigration status, which was illegal and they didn't, but just telling people that did mean, in my opinion, that some people without documents chose not to get signed in. And I think that's a shame. We want everyone to be counted. And he was, as he always was, a person not interested in anything that America was interested in. That's my personal belief. I know some of you don't agree. But whatever it was, he did have an impact on the count. The problem is we don't have a choice. The choice is we have to use the count. We have to redistrict. That's the law. And we don't have a choice. We can't say, you guys screwed it up. Why can't we open the count again to get it right? I wish we could, but we can't. And so we're stuck with what we're stuck with. Terrible, I know. So please, please make your voices heard. Tell people who didn't come here that they can see this again. We're going to put this on our, it was recorded and you can watch it again on Facebook. It's live on Facebook. You'll be able to see it again there and on our social media. We want you to reach out to friends and neighbors who care about this. Now, not everybody does, but for those who do care about this, we hope you'll reach out to your neighbors and your friends. And students, you can do this too. You do not have to be a voting person. People without documents, immigrants, you do not have to be a citizen to be in this process. So please, if this matters to you, here's the way to get involved. And I just want to take a final moment to thank Genesis Coronado for this important meeting and all of our translators for helping everyone to have access to it, because we know that these decisions impact your life and who you get to vote for in 2022. And so please, if it matters to you, get involved. I don't see anything else. I'm going to look one more time. I think we did it all. So thank you all very much. I will end the way I end everything. Please get vaccinated if you are eligible. It is the only way to stop a pandemic, and it is the only way to protect children under 12 who are not eligible for vaccination. So please do your share. Get vaccinated. Get every eligible family member vaccinated as soon as possible. I want this to end, and I know you do too. Thank you all once again, and thank you all for joining us. I know that many of you have worked all day and are working all night and haven't even had dinner yet. So we're going to close this meeting right now by saying thank you to all who participated. I want to thank my staff, all of whom, starting with Alejandra Leon, who put this together. Everybody on my staff worked on getting this information to you, but it was really Genesis Coronado who could provide the actual information. So we thank you once again. And with that, I say, be safe out there and good night. And thank you, Genesis. That was really well done. I think everybody got their questions answered, and we answered virtually, I believe, yep, 100% of the questions. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Genesis. That was awesome.